See if I can get a flank on these kids. Not two.
Downed another.
He's really weak.
Reloading. The whole team wide. Now. Close to me. Maybe I can see.
Look at that. Got some extra supplies here.
The whole team wide. Now, my another rival down. Team wide. Frag out. Let's go. I leveled up. Downed an enemy. Go here. Moving is a good idea. Firing.
Lost an enemy shield.
Minus one opponent.
Send in a decoy. Okay, wait, how do I know that I'm...
Broke their shields.
Sound close.
Broke their shields. Broke their shields. Amping it.
Castle. Got trouble. I got some bad guys. We've got company. Charging on my shields.
He's ulted to the right. Right below us.
Hey, what's going on, Champ Squad? Insanity, back with another Apex Legends video, here as we're nearing the end, but not quite yet the end of Season 23. So this season's been all about the support legend class, with legends like Newcastle and Lifeline rising up to the top of the legend ranking after receiving several key buffs. These included increased movement speed while healing, doubling the healing amount for small meds, faster revive and health regeneration, and getting a mobile respawn beacon on teammate death boxes. That's at least 5 pretty significant buffs the support legend class got this season, so it makes sense why every team in ranks now been running a new meta including Lifeline, Newcastle, and Gibby. But as a result, I feel that Conduit's actually gone a little bit overlooked this season, as Lifeline, Newcastle, and Gibby have taken most of the limelight and she's been a bit overshadowed. But Conduit also got all the support legend class buffs and a few other specific legend buffs that have made her an even better legend than she already was. So today I'll be covering my best tips for maining Conduit this season. I'll be breaking down tips for using her passive, tactical, and ultimate abilities, cover perk selection, as well as a few bonus tips for maining Conduit. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so first off, we're going to discuss Conduit's tactical Radiant Transfer ability. So this is honestly one of the very best legend tacticals in the game. It's very simple, and making effective use of it all comes down to timing. If you're not patient with using this ability, you'll end up putting it to waste, so you want to make sure to hold off until you and your teammates have taken enough damage and not use it prematurely. But you also don't want to wait too long to use this ability, or your teammates might not get the benefit of the shield regen, or they might get knocked before they actually get any shield back. So there are a few guidelines I have for using the shield regen to help get the timing right. So I generally recommend waiting until at least one of your teammates takes 50 damage to their shields before you use the tactical to start getting shield back. If you use the ability any earlier, they won't get any shield, or they'll get very little shield, so it will go to waste. But if you wait too long, they might be so far damaged they won't stay alive long enough to get any of the shield regen either. So waiting until your teammates take a decent amount of damage, but not too much that they might get knocked, is the sweet spot. It's your job as a Conduit main to consistently monitor your teammates' shield as you're in fights, and keeping an eye for when they've taken enough shield where it makes sense to pop the tac. One other recommendation I have is to actually avoid using Conduit's tactical for shield regeneration if you're just poking at enemies from range. If you or your teammates get your shields cracked from range, you can comfortably pop some shields and heal, so it might be a waste to rely on Conduit's Tactical in these cases, especially if you're not actively fighting the team. Wait until you're in that mid to close range to pop Conduit's Tactical, so it can actually help you win the gunfight. Don't just use it as a convenience to avoid healing. Another thing to know about Conduit's Tactical is you don't want to pop it before you even get into a fight. It doesn't make sense to use it as a sort of protective measure. Wait until you've taken that damage so you use the shield regen, or it will go to waste. Whenever I play with Conduits, half them pop the Tactical before anyone on your team has even taken damage, and it kind of goes to waste. Also note, the shield regen does have a cap range of 50 meters, so you always want to remain relatively close to your teammates so that you're in the range to provide them shield regeneration benefits. So a final tip for Conduit's Tactical ability, probably one of the most important ones, is to always use the Tactical ability right after one of your teammates or yourself gets revived. With the buff to revives this season, it triggers health regen, and if you stack shield regen on top of this, you can pretty much get back to full health and shield within just a few seconds after reviving. This will get you or your teammate right back into the fight, and it just makes reviving so OP. So pair shield regen with reviving as much as you can to take advantage of this double heal ability. So next up, onto Conduit's ultimate, her Energy Barricade, which deploys an array of shield jamming devices that can damage and slow enemies. The key tip for Conduit's ultimate is to use it in situations where you can cut off space in a way that gives your team a positional or strategic advantage. Remember that jammers can bounce off of walls and other surfaces, but they do take around 4 seconds to deploy and activate, after which they last for 60 seconds unless they get shut out. So there are a few main scenarios where I recommend using Conduit's ultimate. One is more defensive, when you've taken damage or one of your teammates is knocked, and you want to cut off a team from pushing you. You can deploy the jammers in front of you to slow them down. The jammers can also serve as cover and block bullets and provide you protection as you stick a res. So this will just cut the enemy team off and give you a chance to reset. Along with the defensive option, you can also use Conduit's ultimate as more of an offensive tool. I really like to use her ult after we've knocked one enemy on the other team. Like in this clip, we use the ultimate to cut off space, force the enemy team to make a decision as to whether they should push you. This is especially effective if you're getting into a third party of a fight, because it just adds a bunch of confusion and chaos that you can take advantage of. Also remember that Conduit's ult doesn't impact you or your team, so you can push right through it and also hang out within the jammers when you need to and use it as cover. So on to Conduit's passive ability. This got a really nice buff over the past few seasons, allowing you to get a speed boost when you're out of 50-meter range of your teammates. The speed boost can help you catch up to your team, but also give you increased stray speed in a gunfight if you need it, similar to Bang's double time. The best use case for Conduit's passive, though, is actually if your teammates have died, you need to flee and get over to a respawn beacon. You get pretty much an unlimited speed boost that lets you reach the closest respawn beacon as quickly as possible. This comes in clutch and is really handy. It's also pretty much automatic. It's very easy to use. All you have to do is look in the direction of the beacons or in your teammates that you're trying to catch up to for a few seconds, and it'll activate the speed boost. So next up, to quickly run through Conduit's perks. I think her perks are decent, but they're not really game-changing. They're not like some other legends who have really incredible perks that completely change their abilities. I think there's a better option for each perk, but it's not as obvious for Conduit as it is for some other legends. That said, for the first selection, if you like using batteries on support legends like Conduit, choose the Backpack upgrade, but since I only run shield cells with Conduit, I like to go with the plus 10% jammer increase. For the level 3 upgrade, I do recommend choosing the plus 1 radiant transfer charge over the plus 10 meter shield transfer range. Getting just 10 meter increase on the shield regen range isn't going to be a game changer in most cases, especially if you're being a good support legend and sticking within range of your teammates. I do think the additional transfer charge does come in handy though, since it can give your team more full shields and can help you out in multiple gunfights, so I highly recommend choosing this perk. So finally, onto a few overall best Conduit tips. The first one I mentioned earlier is to use Conduit's shield regeneration right after you revive teammates or right after you get revived. This way they can take advantage of both health regen and shield regen. To make even better use of the shield regen ability, I like to play Conduit while one of my other team members plays another support legend like Newcastle or Lifeline. This can make for a pretty deadly combo between the quick revives with health regeneration paired with Conduit shield regeneration. Another tip just for convenience that I recommend for all support legends, but especially Conduit, is to just run small heals like shield cells and syringes over bats and medkits. This will just clear up your inventory, allow you to carry more grenades or other things that are useful in fights. With the double heal buff this season, you don't really need to be using big heals, so I recommend saving the inventory space, just going with the shield cells and the syringes. Another tip is I like to run SMGs and shotguns with Conduit. She does have a pretty small hitbox, so running close range guns, such as these, will give you faster straight speed and let you take advantage of her slippery hitbox. I like the Mastiff and the Volt specifically this season, and find that they go very well with Conduit's kit. A final tip for Conduit is also to always stay close to your teammates, avoid overextending, and always be monitoring their shield. That's your primary job. You really want to avoid being the first person knocked on your team, because then your shield regen and support abilities go completely to waste. You can still play aggro and push with your teammates, but avoid overextending, play a bit more patiently when you need to, keep an eye on their shield, and provide the regen when they need it. Hope you guys enjoyed this Conduit guide. If you did, take a moment to like and subscribe. I will be coming out with more Legend main guides in the season and the next, and I'll catch you in the next one.